Yeah, man, how you doing? You good? I know you're like, yeah.
Welcome into the Saturday Show, everybody. Hope you're doing well on this Saturday morning. Jake Hatch here, Michelle Bodkin there, your host here on this edition of the Saturday Show. And Michelle, let's start off here. You got a kind of a slower week this week. It's not 5 events, 4 events.
Yeah.
Like, it's a much slower world for you this week.
It's been a lot slower, which has been, I mean, don't get me wrong, the live events are fun and exciting, and especially with the things that some of these teams have been accomplishing as of late, incredible.
Yeah.
But it's also sometimes just nice to be able to do it from the comfort of my couch while I'm looking ugly in my sweatpants.
I can understand that.
And then, you know, turn in the story and then roll over and go to bed. I mean, there's something to be said for that too. So I've definitely been enjoying this week with men's and women's basketball on the road. The only thing I had to worry about was women's gymnastics last night.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
you know.
Hey, that's the name of the game right there. But yeah, it's just it's fun to be at live events. But when you had as crazy a schedule as you had the last 2 weekends in particular, it's like, whew.
Yeah. When everybody decided to be home, yes.
All right, good times. But we got a lot to cover ahead on today's show. We'll be joined by Leon Johnston, yet another Salt Lake Stallions alumnus. Excited to catch up with him. Michelle's doing yeoman's work over here, and it's fun to be catching up with these people, like, because they've got stories. All of them have a story. And that's fun to hear and talk about their time with the Stallions in particular. So Leon Johnson will join us in the 11 o'clock hour, so stay tuned for that. We got plenty of NFL coverage to talk about. We got an AFC and NFC title games. Got Utah Jazz to talk about. We got a lot to cover.
Woo!
We had the Utah Royals schedule announced.
I know. Gosh, it's been a great week for female sports here
it
in the
has, no
state.
doubt. So before we really dive in, Michelle, do you have a highlight of the week?
Highlight of the week. You know what? Probably Thursday night, Andrea Urban, who is the Utah Sportscaster of the Year, we went and celebrated the big accomplishment and just had dinner, and it was really super fun.
It's an accomplishment in and of itself. Because it's cool for her to receive that award, but she's the first female in the NSMA Utah history to win that award.
Well, and I think just to make a clarification, because there's one for people that are like on TV on radio.
They're broadcasters
and then there's writers, and obviously there's been female writers that have won it. Amy Donaldson, Sarah Todd are 2 examples that have won on the writing side, but never on the broadcasting side has this happened. So super awesome.
What did you guys do to celebrate? You just went out to dinner?
We went to dinner at Osteria Amore.
Okay.
And just hung out and chatted, ate, drank. It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to talk to Andrea face-to-face since the award came out, but I'll just say right now, awesome.
Yeah,
awesome
so cool.
Stuff. Congratulations to her. It's really, really cool to see that. And it's an award that kind of gets passed around. It's the nature of the business. There's not a ton of media folk, so it goes around, but to have her kind of break through in the broadcaster sphere and win that was really, really cool to see. Highlight of my week, honestly, probably just hanging out with my kids, being a dad. It's fun to just kick back. Little man Landon is now almost, he's 4 months old. Jeez, he's 4 months old today.
That's crazy. It doesn't feel like he's been around that long.
No, well, relatively he hasn't, but he's a fun little dude and he's doing well. So it's just, I don't know. I'm very much in dad mode all the time, it feels like. So it's fun though, but good times. My kids are both in sports right now. It just keeps me hopping from thing to thing to thing all the time.
Oh yeah.
No stop, nonstop. But nonetheless, fun times. But let's start off today's show, Michelle, and talk a little bit about college football. You had a very interesting point you made before we got on the show about college coaching, and it relates mainly to Jim Harbaugh's move. Obviously, he's leaving Michigan, wins the national title. He's moving on. He's joining the Los Angeles Chargers. But I'm going to let you explain this, because I thought it was absolutely fascinating and worth discussion.
Yeah. So, I mean, this announcement comes down, I think, Wednesday, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like,
it was Wednesday afternoon.
When does everything happen? Yes. So, and I just found myself sitting there wondering, with the way that college football is changing, with the way it's kind of becoming more like a pro sport where the players can get paid, where they can kind of move wherever they want to move to. is that going to produce college coaches that are better equipped to make that move to the NFL? Because it's more of a similar thing, whereas back in the day, very, very different professions all the way around. And there's a reason why you didn't see a lot of college coaches have a successful jump to the pro ranks. And it's because in college, at least before things have turned into what they are now, these college coaches were able to kind of monitor and make demands and literally tell their guys, this is what I expect from you every hour of the day, basically.
Sure.
And you can't do that at the pro level. They are adultier adults at that point, and they're professionals, and they're getting paid, and it's a job, and you can't control and mind. And so it just always kind of rubs teams the wrong way, and those coaches never seem to do well. You look at, a Nick Saban, for as amazing as he was in the college ranks, he really, really struggled in the pro ranks. And Jim Harbaugh, the first time, kind of had a mixed bag. I'm trying to think of, who.
Chip Kelly.
Chip Kelly was a mixed bag. It's like they do well for a minute, and then it just all goes to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
And I think, Urban Meyer is like probably the biggest example of just crash and burn.
Oh, man.
But then you look at a guy like Pete Carroll, like the first go around was not great for him, but he's the only college coach I can think of from the old era that actually successfully made that move and transition and had a good career on both sides of it. I can't think of anyone else that really has had that level of success.
Well, and that's a really good point, because you're right. There have been very clear delineations over the years of that's a pro coach, that's a college coach, because there's just different ways they operate. Because in the pro game, for example, you have a coach who they're focused on the short term. You have front office executives who they're more of the 30,000 foot view, long term, and they work in concert with one another. Now, there's friction at times, obviously, because a coach wants X player for the short term, whereas the executive over there is like, he's going to be washed up in 2 and 3 years. I'm not giving him a contract for that long.
Yeah.
There's that friction. In college, the coach is the judge, jury, and executioner, to use that term, because they make the decisions on roster, who's playing where, if you keep your scholarship, in essence, your contract. It's a very different feel. And there are guys, Nick Saban's among them, Chip Kelly's among them, that have gone from college to the pros, realized that, hold up, I have to deal with a general manager here, and they're like, this isn't me. They are very much, they want to be in control of it all.
Everything.
And that's where it works more for college. But I actually really like your point, because you're right. As college is morphing right now to where, let's just call a spade a spade. It's pay for play. It is professional sports. And that's the thing about it, is I think it makes people mad to consider that, because they like the collegiality of what college football has been, et cetera. But as it morphs into more of a professional model, you're right. I think these coaches, they become more of the, okay, I can deal with the pro ranks, because I'm telling you, you're going to see more directors of player personnel, recruiting directors for college football programs that are already in place, but they're going to have more and more say.
They're going to be more of a GM.
They're going to morph into a GM role. And it's fascinating, because I do wonder, if it will bring the two worlds almost like side by side, versus where before there was a very, very clear divide between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this next generation of coaches coming up probably are going to be able to move to and from if they want. And here's the thing, though. I think college coaches will probably move to the pro ranks when they're available. I don't really foresee pro people moving back down to college unless something drastically changes with the hours.
Well, sure, and that's the thing about it. I've heard from NFL coaches that a number of them would not even consider going back to college, because of the fact that with how recruiting is right now, the fact you have to re-recruit your roster literally month after month after month. It's just nonstop. And in the NFL, at least you have a contract. The guy is locked in. Now they can be upset and hold out, do whatever they want to do on that side. But they have contracts. Whereas college, that contract's as good about as good as that paper. It's the contract happens to be printed on. It is mercenaries.
Yeah,
and that's the tough part. And I'm with you. I think there's going to be more college coaches willing and apt to jump to the pro game where it's much more stable and you're right, you control the hours better and your lifestyle, which is crazy to consider because the NFL, it's not known for a very...
It's not like, they're sitting back doing nothing.
Yeah, but the fact that it's maybe more preferable hours-wise and just lifestyle-wise to college now, that's a very, very interesting thing that college football is going to have to navigate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. It might sound a little hyperbolic, but college football is a little bit broken right now.
Yeah,
it's still enjoyable to watch. It's still enjoyable to cover. But you look at it from the 30,000-foot view, and there's some real problems that need to be sorted out. And I think the sport ultimately needs to decide: are we still going to kind of do this rah-rah collegiate thing, or are we going to lean into being more of a pro-style thing? Mm-hmm. But right now, it feels like the toes are still dipped in both. And it's just a little ridiculous for everyone involved.
Sure. But the other thing about it is all parties... they're all going to benefit in a way because they're all making money. Like there's PK, and this is not an original quote from him, but there are no losers in professional sports.
Right.
Like, they're all making incredible money relative to us regular folk out there. But there's an interesting dichotomy of how coaches are going to adapt to this. Now, there's one thing that I can't remember if it was a podcast or a radio show I heard recently where they talked about Bill Belichick. Now, Bill had full say over player personnel as well as being the head coach of the New England Patriots. He's one of the rare people who essentially was the GM and head coach at the same time. And the point that, like I said, I wish I could remember with the show and give them credit, but I don't. The point that they made is when he stepped down, fired, let go, mutually agreed to part ways with the Patriots, whatever you want to term it. They were talking about the fact that he is a rarity in pro sports where he is able to both keep the short-term coach view while at the same time being able to step back and see the long view as well, because his roster decision-making for most of his time in New England was fairly solid. Now, the last few years without Tom Brady, some of the cracks started to appear, and Tom Brady made up apparently for a lot, but alas, he's one of the rare people that was able to kind of blend both of those worlds and essentially thrive with it. 6 Super Bowls, 24 seasons. You can't argue with the output that he had. But I think he is the anomaly. That is not going to be the way that things are going to go. And college coaches that want to jump to the pros, Michelle, they don't want to have that responsibility. They're jumping to be just a ball coach.
Yeah.
I want to coach my team. Jim Harbaugh, he's probably jumping because there's going to be some things coming down from the NCAA, it feels like, from Michigan. But at the same time, he's probably looking at the circumstances involved in college football right now, the forces that are in play. And Nick Saban's similar. Nick Saban decided to retire versus moving on. They're looking at saying, you know what? This is way too much. This is not what I signed up for. So therefore, to use the Shark Tank thing, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're going to see a lot more people kind of making that decision.
Yes.
I think a lot of the greats that we grew up with, we're going to start seeing them retire and maybe even before some of them really truly want to, but it's the way things are isn't worth it. And it's frustrating and, it's just very different from how they've operated. Again, it's kind of I think we might see some coaches that have traditionally been very, very successful. And actually, I think we did see this a little bit with Nick Saban. Not horrible by any means, but by his standard, he wasn't as good the last couple of years as he's typically been. And I do kind of wonder if that's not part of the product of, again, this game has changed so much at the collegiate level that his style and how he does things and how he handles things maybe just isn't working as well. And like I said, I think there's a strong possibility that we see that happen with some other coaches. Maybe we see that with a guy like Mike Gundy that's been around for a long, long time. Maybe we see that with Kyle Whittingham, who's been around a long, long time. These are coaches that are renowned for being very, very good, solid coaches and have produced a lot of wins and have really kind of impressed people over the years. But maybe it ends up not working as well for them, or maybe it does. You know, we're going to find out real soon. But I think that's something to question and consider as we kind of go forward.
Now, the other thing I wonder about is maybe, I don't know, this may sound weird. Maybe college football becomes a young man's game. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where they're kind of up and coming guys who they move into head coaching roles. Like, look at Dan Lanning, for example.
Right.
Does anybody think that Dan Lanning's going to stick at Oregon for 25 years?
Probably not.
I don't see it.
I think he'll be around for a little while.
Sure, but I see him jump into the pros eventually.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is because it's like, you know what? The NFL is more attractive. But maybe he bucks the trend and he is the guy who wants to stick around in college is his calling card. Great. But I could see a situation where young coaches kind of work their way up through the college ranks, but when they get that chance to go to the pros, because there's fewer jobs in the pros now. It's 32 teams versus what are we at Division I now? 133 at the FBS level or whatever.
Something like that, yeah.
It's insane. But there are fewer jobs at the pro level, obviously, but the best are going to rise to the top and they're going to get those opportunities. And I would be hard-pressed to think that veteran coaches, to your point, who have put time in, and maybe if we're having this conversation maybe like 15 years ago and Kyle Whittingham's still a relatively young man, maybe Kyle Whittingham's like, maybe I do want to try the NFL out. Mike Gundy, similar situation. Kalani Sitake is kind of entering that period where you might think about something like that. I do wonder if that's how it could ultimately transpire, where your college coaches are younger guys who are working their way up, and when they get the chance, just get used to the fact that guess what, the NFL's coming calling, and they're going to take that over sticking with the alma mater as it is.
Or you'll see them take just bigger jobs in college too, because I think that disparity is also probably going to continue to grow.
Well, and you also made the point earlier. Maybe some of the guys retire a little earlier because guess what? They're making an insane amount of money relative to what their forebears made. Norm Chow used to come on DJ and PK every week, and he would talk every so often about Glenn Tuckett and Lavelle every year would say, we can pay you this amount. And he's like, it's in like the low six figures, like $100,000 as an offensive coordinator for a national championship caliber BYU squad in the 80s.
Yeah.
And like, we wish we could give you more, but that's not it. These days, if you want a halfway decent offensive coordinator in college,
$500,000 at least.
I think it's $1 million at this point.
Probably more towards $1 million.
BYU's already, and here's the thing, to BYU's credit, and trust me, I look at how BYU operates with the whole less is more mentality. Drives me bonkers about that football program, but they have started ponying up more for stuff. For example, Jay Hill, to get Jay Hill out of Ogden, out of his Weber State thing, they paid him north of $1 million. And I have that on, let's just say, very good authority.
Yeah.
Guess what? You want guys of that caliber who, by the way, Jay Hill is worth every dime BYU's paying him, because you look at what he's doing on the recruiting front with that defense. You're going to have to pay. You have to pay up now.
Totally.
But you're right. The money is only going up. And some guys may get to 55, for example, and say, I could go another 10 years, but I've got X tens of millions of dollars already in my bank account over here. Why do I want to keep going? I can go spend time with my family. I can go do what I want to do. And a lot of guys are football guys, but you get burned out eventually.
Yeah.
So I can very well see a situation where guys, they do retire younger and they're out.
And I mean, what's starting to get kind of popular too is, because I think a lot of them aren't necessarily ready to let it go.
Oh, yeah.
They become radio personalities or TV personalities,
the transition
or
to the media.
I haven't seen anyone become a writer yet, but maybe there might be a guy or two in there that wants to be a sports writer.
You and I both know that writing is far harder than talking.
I see. Actually, writing was much easier for me than talking. I had to learn the talking part.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm telling you, coaches, they're going to find the talking head media thing far easier than to sit down and write a story.
Totally.
That's just, maybe there is one or two, you're right, that will come out of the woodwork and become like this incredible wordsmith.
Right.
But these are guys who are used to talking for a living.
I was going to say, you know who I don't know if he's a good writer, but it wouldn't shock me if he was a good writer.
Who's that?
Brian Johnson.
Okay, Brian, maybe so. Which, by the way, Brian's now like a free agent.
I know, that's crazy.
Got let go by the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll see where he lands next. I'm sure he's not going to be out without a job that long personally, but it's a very interesting thing. And I actually appreciate you even bringing it up, Michelle, because I hadn't really considered that. Because, yeah, Harbaugh may be kind of the sign of the times.
Yeah.
Where you've accomplished something in college football. And he got Michigan back to the top of the mountaintop. They hadn't won a national title. They split the title in 97, which was their last national title. It was split that year. The last outright one, Michelle, do you know when their last outright one for Michigan was? 1948.
1948?
Post World War II. Like, we're talking
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's
I didn't think it was that long.
That's the last time Michigan has held an outright national title.
Oh my gosh.
But so he gets them to the top of the mountaintop.
Yeah. Okay.
Says, you know what? Walls are closing in with the NCAA here. And maybe I'm a little fed up with how the NCAA is operating. So guess what? I had success in the NFL. I led the San Francisco 49ers to a Super Bowl berth, which I lost to my brother, but I'm going right back. And frankly, I cannot blame him one bit, because now all Harbaugh has to deal with now is being a ball coach.
Yeah.
He's got Justin Herbert as a quarterback over here. He'll have a front office, whoever they hire as their GM will handle the contracts, and he'll have a say on roster building and the draft picks and the like. But he is able to essentially focus on what I think Jim Harbaugh loves more than anything else in the entire world, and that is coaching ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I just think a lot of these guys are getting to where they don't want to deal with the extra, because there's just there's no regulation on any of it at this point in time. And I mean, Harbaugh's an interesting example. I don't think we'll see a lot of these older guys make that jump.
No.
I think we'll see more the Nick Saban thing. I think we'll see a lot of retirements coming pretty soon.
Yeah.
But I do find myself wondering, with how college football is changing, if guys that decide they want to coach at the pro level, if they won't start having more success making that jump in the future. And I kind of think we will start seeing that.
Yeah, I have a hard time disagreeing with you, because it seems like it's very clear that that's kind of the path that is being laid out here. And it could change, obviously, and there could be a new, regulations put in place that makes college maybe that much more, attractive to guys. But right now, honestly, if you're a college coach, what would you rather have? The NFL, where you have contracts are in place, guys are locked in for X number of years at whatever number, and essentially you say, let's go play ball, versus college football, where you got to worry about 100 other coaches talking to every one of your players saying, hey, you want to come play for me and we'll pay you this amount of money, and then
yeah.
The NFL looks so
great right now.
I'm sure there are college guys out there who will look at it and say, I love coaching in college.
Yeah.
But I cannot put up with this. My family can't put up with this. Like that.
Totally.
That's the tough part to absorb right now if you're a coach. And it's already a crazy, crazy business to begin with. The layers upon layers that have kind of been tossed on top of you in college, man. Yeah, the NFL looks really good.
Amen.
All right. We will take our first time out here. We'll come back on the other side. We'll get into some Utah Jazz talk. You got NFL playoffs as well. We've got a lot to cover ahead on today's show.
We have a lot to cover.
We'll have some fun along the way. This is the Saturday show right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back to the Saturday show, everybody. Hope you're doing well on this Saturday morning. A lot still to come on today's show. Stay tuned. Leon Johnson, a former member of the Salt Lake Stallions, is going to join us. We'll talk some football with him. But I also want to talk some football right now, Michelle.
Let's do it.
AFC, NFC title games. Now, big matchups in both of these games, because I think these are honestly the 4 best teams. There's some argument to be made that maybe one of the 2 other teams could make an argument for that. But I think we've got 2 matchups here that hold a whole lot of intrigue just simply because of the different storylines for all 4 teams.
Yeah. I mean, did I watch all of those games? I did, at least bits and pieces of all of them. Yeah, I caught some of all the actions of the past couple or last week. Yes. And I thought those games were quite entertaining.
Yeah.
And yeah, now we're in a place where you have Mr. Irrelevant, you have a first round guy that, I mean, looked like he was washed up and he's found a second breath. And then you have 2 guys that are all pro, all everything. We know that they're great. We know that they're good. We know that they're winners. We know what they bring to the table. We have some good defenses everywhere. I think this next round is probably going to be even better than the last round that we just watched.
Well, and that's the hope, obviously, because that's what the NFL is banking on. Come on now. The NFL is in the business of printing money, and they do it via the massive numbers that they get TV-wise. And there'll be millions upon millions. I'll be parked in front of my TV watching these games play out. But you're right, the storylines and just how things are laying out here. Now, I want to start off we'll go kind of in chronological order. We'll start with the AFC here. You mentioned the fact you have Lamar Jackson on one side, you have Patrick Mahomes on the other. Now, you mentioned they're all everything quarterbacks. Like 2 of the quarterbacks, in all honesty, they're going to go down as some of the all-timers. Now, could an injury derail all that for either one of these? Sure, but as it looks right now, they look the part of future Hall of Fame type quarterbacks. Mahomes, he could retire right now and be a Hall of Famer. I'm dead serious about that.
I don't think you're wrong.
He's only 27 or 28, but
something like that. Yeah,
he's still got a ways to go. How much more could he do? That's the big question. But this is a game that, funny enough, you have the quarterbacks who are the headliners, but these 2 defenses are kind of the big storyline in this game. Which of these defenses can slow down the opposing quarterback? I think will go a long way to winning that game.
Absolutely. And not an easy task either.
No.
I think I lean towards Baltimore has the better defense, I think. And maybe this is just my bias because, again, when I think Baltimore Ravens, I think Ed Reed, I think
Ray Lewis,
Haloti Ngata, Paul Kruger. That's what I think too. And they haven't been that for a while, but that's just automatically where my mind goes. When I hear that they have a good defense, it's like, oh yeah, it's those guys, but it's not those guys.
We'll just add Kyle Van Noy and Marcus Williams.
That's fine.
That's the new era.
That's the new era. It's fine. And we like that. We like locals.
Yeah, Van Noy has reinvigorated his career, has had the highest sack total of his entire career, and he wasn't even signed until 3 weeks or 4 weeks into the season. Marcus Williams continues just to be a stud over there, by the way, in that secondary. And that's the fun part about this is you're right, 2 elite defenses. Baltimore's had that rep for years. I was reading a story yesterday about Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, and how he is transformed the Kansas City rep is offense all the time. And he has turned their defense actually into the stronger unit, honestly, this year than what their offense has been. Now, the wide receiving core for Kansas City, I don't know what they were banking on. We're going to get away with what we got. No, you're not. And that could doom them in this game if guys like Marcus Valdez-Scantling don't catch the football and Kadarius Toney lines up offside. They've had a cavalcade of issues with their wide receivers. But the reps of these 2 teams, this one shapes up similar to what we saw with Buffalo and Kansas City last week. This is shaping up on paper to be a classic, an all-timer type game.
If I had to guess which game I think is going to be the better game, my money would be on KC Baltimore. To be honest.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one, and the odds makers think that too. I think it opened up at 2.5 points on the spread, whereas the 49ers and Lions, who we'll talk about here in a minute, it was a 7-point spread right out of the gate. And the NFL has always tried to get parity to where those spreads very rarely go outside. They want them single digits. They don't want to go outside double digits. Now that happens because teams just aren't good. Like the Carolina Panthers this year, I wonder how many times games. They were a double-digit underdog this season, but that's beside the point here because we're talking about the AFC and NFC title games. But the thing about this is with Baltimore and Kansas City, the fact that the game is in Baltimore gives a major advantage, I think, to the Ravens because Kansas City, when you play at Arrowhead, good luck to you. Like, there's a reason why there was so much made of Patrick Mahomes playing his first ever career playoff game on the road last week at Buffalo. And they're like, well, how's he going to handle playing on the road? Guys, in the postseason, do you know what his career record is in the postseason right now, by the way?
No.
For Mahomes? He is 9-2, if I'm not mistaken. And those 2 losses, Michelle, are to one Tom Brady.
Okay, well, I mean, you can't be too mad about that, I guess.
No, here's the thing. Kansas City is set up for the long term with a guy like Patrick Mahomes under center, but I do wonder 2 straight road games. Like obviously they have to take the path that they have never taken before. They've won those 2 Super Bowls in the recent past, and the fact that they have had to play it, they've been able to play at home before that. This is a whole new era for them. Can you win 2 road games to punch your ticket to the Super Bowl? That's the big question. Yeah,
I mean that's not a position they've been put in before. So it's a huge question, and I mean you're going to a place where I think the fan base is equally as passionate about their team as I mean Ravens flock is like a thing. It's a real thing, and especially when they're doing well and that kind of stuff, which the Ravens obviously are. It's not going to be the nicest environment for Casey.
No, and they're going to have to obviously battle uphill, and that just comes with the territory in the NFL playoffs is you're constantly having to battle elements or fan base, that type of stuff. The only other question I've got on that is does Lamar Jackson need to win another Super Bowl to legitimize himself in people's eyes, Michelle? Because there are so many people that still count him out. Even though I think he is one of the seminal talents at quarterback in this league. He came into the league, feel like he can't pass the ball effectively. All he's done is prove he can pass the ball effectively. Well, he's a running quarterback. Running quarterbacks don't last in this league. He's lasted in the league being a running quarterback. Like, I just wonder if he's got it. Let's say they pull it off, they do get the Super Bowl title. Does that legitimize Lamar Jackson into the all-timer category?
I think it helps, but I mean, unfortunately, I'll just go ahead and say it. We have a long way to go when we think about black quarterbacks and respecting them.
I would agree with that.
And it's crazy to me that just being a shade or 2 lighter. Patrick Mahomes I think gets him a little more. I think he's more digestible for people. Like I know I'm treading in dangerous territory right here.
But you're not saying anything that's not out of what people have argued and or discussed before.
But and these are legitimate conversations I've had face to face with real black quarterbacks, and this is what I've been told. So I think it goes a long way, but it sucks that he is maybe expected to have to do a little bit more, be just that much greater, in order to get the same level of respect.
Sure. Yeah, and that's the tough part about it is, he has to battle in that circumstance uphill even in his own right on that. Now, let's flip over to the NFC for a moment here before we take a break. Lions, I think, are like America's sweetheart, Michelle. Like, they're the lovable losers. They hadn't won a playoff game in 30 years. They haven't won an NFC. They haven't won a Super Bowl. They haven't even been to they've never even been to a Super Bowl, Michelle. The last time they were on top of the NFL was when the NFL and the AFL were 2 separate leagues. They hadn't even gotten together yet. And it's crazy to consider that. It's been since 1957 since the Lions were on top of the football world. I can confidently say that everybody that's not a San Francisco 49ers fan, I'm fairly certain, is rooting for the Lions to do the dang thing, as they say.
I love the storyline of the Lions, and I have nothing against the 49ers at all. Like, obviously, that's a team that I also, even though I'm a Packers fan, that's a team that I grew up liking and cheering for. I think my preference is the Lions, strangely enough, just because I love the storyline. It's fresh blood, it's new blood. But that game, I'm not going to be mad or upset either way how that falls out. That neither one have necessarily been through this recently enough that like I'm bored with them being there. If that I mean, like the 49ers have kind of flirted with it and been there,
but Super Bowls in the last 10 years, but yeah.
But like not enough to where I'm like, oh my God, like are we doing the 49ers again? Like can we do something different, please?
Well, I can appreciate the fact that you say that because there are a lot of people who are the opposite of what you're talking about. They're so sick of the Niners, and I get it. Here's the thing, Michelle. The last time the 49ers won a Super Bowl, it's been 30 years. Steve Young, 94.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
It's been 30 years since.
First of all, that really bothers me that it's been 30 years since Steve Young has quarterbacked the 49ers because, like, in my mind, it's not been that long ago, and it really was.
That makes you feel old all of a sudden. And that I understand. I get it. But I am interested to see how this goes because Brock Purdy last week, he struggled mightily for 3.5 quarters. Then on a drive they needed him to come up big, he started delivering finally. Can he parlay that to playing a more complete game? Because if he doesn't, I'm terrified that the 49ers run to the Super Bowl ends in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah. And I think that's a safe assumption, to be honest. Like, he cannot perform like he did against the Packers. Like, no. They're lucky that they got away with that win. They're lucky that Jordan Love finally started looking like a rookie.
Why, for the life of me, Jordan Love throwing that pass?
The minute that left his hand, I was like, oh boy, that's going to get intercepted. And sure enough, it did.
Yeah. It's just, you're right. He played so well for so long in that game. And then it was like,
the wheels just kind of came off.
Yeah, but like Brock Purdy put it together in the final drive, and Jordan Love fell apart in the final drive.
I know.
But
crazy.
Here's the thing. I'm going to say about Jordan Love. Watch out.
He's going to be so good. He's going to be. But here's my thing, and this is like my argument.
Okay.
I still think the Packers were absolutely insane taking him as early as they did. Just from the standpoint of, I don't know that he was necessarily on anyone's radar like that. And they didn't need him immediately. I think they could have waited until the 4th round.
Okay.
And still had the same result, right? But you're paying him less until he's ready to take over. But it's just, this is how the NFL needs to start operating with these quarterbacks. You need to give these guys a chance to get their feet under them, because expecting most of these, like, not a CJ Stroud is like a very rare occurrence.
Yes.
You know, it's just not fair to pick them up with that kind of expectation and expect them to be any good. And you look at how many guys have burned out and never amounted to anything, and yet they were so good in college. And I mean, there may be cases where that still ends up being the case, right? Like, sometimes it just doesn't translate. But I just don't think a lot of these guys are given a fair shake at it. And then they get, you know, kind of stamped as damaged goods, and, you know, they might go be a backup somewhere else.
Sure.
But like, that's as far as they ever get. And what if we're missing out on truly generational talent, but we just don't give them the chance or the opportunity to develop into that?
I would like for that to be the case. And it kind of goes back to our conversation in the first segment here, Michelle, is that coaches are in it for the short term because they know that their jobs are on the line and they're giving me everybody that can help me win right now. Whereas front office executives, and to Green Bay's front office, to their credit, they took Love knowing full well that Aaron Rodgers is still very much a viable quarterback and we're going to give him the time to develop. It'd be nice to see that strategy adopted more fully in the league, because you're right. Guys like Zach Wilson could have benefited in a similar circumstance to what Jordan Love has been benefited from, I think, personally.
Oh, completely into, like, I know I'm going to make a lot of people mad when I say this. He had no business being the 2nd pick of the NFL draft. Now, he absolutely is an NFL talent, but again, he needed time to develop. That doesn't happen when you're the 2nd pick of the NFL draft. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
He needed to be a 4th round pick. He really did. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. We'll see what happens with him. Hopefully, he can maybe go someplace where he can kind of chill back for a bit and not be expected to be the guy, and try dipping his toe back into it eventually. Hopefully he gets that chance, because he certainly did not get that chance the first go around. But again, it's because he was not a 2nd round NFL talent.
Zach Wilson, Los Angeles Rams quarterback. Behind Matthew Stafford. Let Stafford play out the string here.
That would be perfect.
Develop, work with Sean McVay, and then step into the role.
I love that. I think Matthew Stafford is a great person for Zach Wilson to learn under.
Well, and Sean McVay as a coach.
And Zach Wilson kind of has this like young, hot, like cool dude vibe. Like, we're better than LA to go be that dude. Yeah. I like that all the way around. I think that has some potential. I think he could be successful in that kind of environment. Now, whether or not he gets that chance, because again, everybody watched what happened with the Jets, and some of it was his fault.
Sure.
Some of it was his fault. He did not handle some things well, but at the same time, he also had a lot of thrown at him too. And nobody wanted to help him because, again, there's this whole thing about, well, you're first round talent. Well, it doesn't mean that he doesn't need help.
Yeah.
You can't. Anyway, I digress. But, now he just kind of has this label about him, whether it's fair or not. Will he get that chance?
Well, we've seen former Jets quarterbacks make the playoffs the last 2 years. Geno Smith, Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson down the road. He could be yet another one. And by the way, if he does that, that just indicates everything I need to know about the New York Jets. They're a dumpster fire. Quarterback graveyard.
They are a dumpster fire. Like, talk about unrealistic expectations. Bringing in high talent guys, expecting them to save your thing, but hey, we're not going to actually invest in offensive linemen that will keep you upright. We're not going to get you wide receivers to throw to. Running backs, whatever. But hey, defense, awesome. But young rook, go do your thing. Like, make this all look good. Make our garbage pile look good.
It's what it is. It's tough. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, and Zach has been, sadly, he's been eaten up. And we'll see what his next step is, but it'll be interesting. All right, let's take a time out here. We'll come back on the other side. We'll get to technical fouls, talk about what's going on in the sports world of, more negative tone. We'll get to all that next, and also Leon Johnson, top of the 11 o'clock hour. This is the Saturday Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
You're coming from the street with dirty shoes on your feet. That's a technical foul. If you switch the radio to some modern music show, that's a technical foul. If you touch the thermostat,
You'll get hit with a bat.
'cause that's a technical foul.
You will feel my wrath.
That's a technical foul.
Personal foul, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
A technical foul.
Welcome back to the Saturday Show. Time now for technical fouls, talking about the other things in sports out there that are a little bit off the beaten path and typically have a negative a slant to them because a lot of people do some stupid things out there, Michelle. But there's one league that, for whatever reason, will take all the gambling money they can get, but don't you dare, as a member of that league, try and essentially take some money of your own.
Yeah, so the New York Post did an article, Football Stars Can't Even Play Slots as NFL's Strict Gambling Rules for Las Vegas Super Bowl Revealed. So it turns out, while in Las Vegas, players participating in the Super Bowl are prohibited from engaging in any form of gambling, including casino games and betting on the sport or on any sport.
Jeez.
So you send all these guys here to have a great time in Las Vegas, only you can't really have a great time in Las Vegas. And it's sounding like even the players that are coming that aren't actually playing will also be penalized. Like, they can't either. So what's the point of even having this big thing in Las Vegas if you can't do Las Vegas things?
Well, that's the other thing about it is why? Why would you... You're going to the gambling capital of the world, and you're going to tell everybody involved with the league, you mentioned, like players playing in the game, players who are attending, because a lot of them do go out there for events. They're being sponsored by a myriad of different companies at parties and whatnot. And you tell them, hey, you can't do any of the stuff that, by the way, you could come back on Monday and do.
It's just bizarre. It's so weird. So weird, but whatever. So yeah, shame on you for, like, I just don't get it. Then why even have it there?
Yeah, they want to be in Vegas. They moved the Raiders there. I get all that, but it is Way to go, NFL. By the way, they were like suspending guys for half a season. Jamison Williams from the Lions got like an 8-game suspension for having the audacity to bet on his own personal phone, but having to do it inside the Detroit Lions facility. He's not the only one. I just remember his name was one of the ones amongst that.
Oh,
Are you kidding me right now? Like, just stop it. Like that. Whatever. Yeah. Go to Vegas, but don't participate in what Vegas is famous
No
for.
slot machines for you.
Jeez, ridiculous. Can I offer one up this week? Mine kind of is the antithesis of what we typically do on this.
Okay.
Did you see last week Jason Kelce having the time of his life?
Oh
at the
my gosh,
Buffalo
yes.
Bills game for Kansas
I
City?
kind of giggled. I thought it was funny.
It was so funny. There were people out there that were like bagging on him about it in a way because they're like, he's meeting Taylor Swift for the first time, and he went on the his New Heights podcast with his brother Travis, who's dating Taylor Swift. And Jason said this because he took his shirt off, crushing beers, all that type of stuff. He says he got caught up due to all the shenanigans and the energy from Bill's Mafia. He says, I got caught up in the magic of Bill's Mafia. It is electric. But then he says, I didn't get outside until later. I wanted to go outside early, but I want to take my shirt off and be out there. When I entered the box, I noticed, hey, I can jump out of this box and I'll be outside. If I take my shirt off, then I'm outside. I'm part of the Buffalo Bills pageantry. But then then later talking about the fact that his wife Kylie, who warned him, we're meeting Taylor Swift. Please be on your best behavior. Like, she's probably just like begging him. Like, just don't embarrass me, please. Because Jason and Travis, come on. If you read the stories about them, apparently Jason, while he was at the University of Cincinnati, just ripped a sink off of the wall in a bar because he wanted to, essentially, like because he could. Just nuts. But she says, on the podcast, she said, speaking of Kylie, Jason, don't you dare. She's already telling me to be on my best behavior because we're meeting Taylor. And then he said, essentially, he's like, what did he say? Oh, he said, when I met you, I was blackout drunk at a bar for the first time.
Yeah.
If you watch the podcast, Travis just starts busted up. He's like, well, you have nowhere to go but up in those two circumstances. So, you know what? Kylie was upset. Apparently, she was trying to warn Jason, but you got to be who you are.
Yeah.
And to Jason's credit, he is who he is all the time. There's no facade with the Kelce brothers.
Right.
Like, there are other people out there with a facade, Taylor Swift, that I think are putting on for things, but I think the Kelce brothers, they just are who they are.
Well, you know what, and I mean, who knows who and what Taylor Swift's actually like, but I have a sneaking suspicion she has a really super fun side.
I would hope so.
And probably really enjoyed that. I know I would have laughed.
Yeah, crazy. So I wanted to get like a little bit of like a reverse.
Yeah.
Good for you, Jason. Like, and by the way, he's apparently going to retire. He hasn't officially.
Right.
Good for him.
What a way to kick that off.
Yeah, he's living his best life, no doubt about that. All right, we will come back on the other side. Leon Johnson, formerly of the Salt Lake Stallions, is going to join us. We'll catch up with him, kind of reminisce on some of the stuff. Michelle's got a really cool idea here for those of you who don't know what we're doing here. We're essentially just letting people from the Stallions, who Michelle worked with, have their say on, kind of reminiscing on old times and all that type of stuff. So we'll get to that next right here on The Saturday Show.